This is like holy grail of cinema. These are where Maya kept her films, and actually there are films inside, and we don't even know what they are. This is one of the archives where one can still make discoveries and one can get excited and in ecstasy. There may be some very interesting discoveries.
This is the first picture I took of Maya. It must have been a few days after we met in Hollywood. It's already faded a little. I was fascinated by her face. Kind of exotic. Maya wasn't always Maya. She used to be called Eleonora. Her mother used to call her Elinka in Russian. She confided me that she was unhappy about the name, and she asked me once to find a name for her. So I just went to the library and looked through a lot of books, mainly books on mythology. I came across the name Maya in different connections, for instance with water. But Maya also was the name of Mother of Buddha. In Hinduism, Maya was the name of a goddess who holds a veil in front of our eyes, a veil of illusion which prevents us from seeing the spiritual reality behind it.
I was a poet before I was a filmmaker, and I was a very poor poet because I thought in terms of images. What existed as essentially a visual experience in my mind, poetry was an effort to put it into verbal terms. When I got a camera in my hand, it was like coming home. It was like doing what I always wanted to do without the need to translate it into a verbal form.
She could have been a dancer, but that would have taken full-time work with us and so on. So she stayed being a kind of a personal secretary, you know, that sort of thing. I had to keep my eye on Maya at times, you know, because I don't think I had a star complex at all, but I had to remind her now and then. And we were in Hollywood to begin a kind of a new career for the company. Frequently, I would ask some of the Hollywood people to come in. And Maya was wonderful at meeting them at the door and introductions and seating them and so forth and so on. But the gleam in her eye when the drummers took their positions and began to play, you know, and we'd have our exercise, always the drums we worked. Well, Maya had a habit of, she was extremely well built as far as robust, you know, and she'd sit there. Usually her little simple frocks were quite low cut in the front anyway. And after a while, she couldn't stand it, and you could just feel it growing and growing in her. And she turned, I remember her favorite thing was say, "How can you sit still?" You know, and then she started on this sort of. I was wild because I had to find, little by little, I had to stop it, of course. I couldn't have that, you know, with these impresarios. But who knows, maybe she helped us get our Hollywood position. The drums really took her over. She was possessed by rhythm. And you can see it without drums, without sound, or anything else, and in the way she handled her body.
If I did not live in a time when the film was accessible to me as a medium, I would have been a dancer, perhaps, or a singer. My reason for creating them is almost as if I would dance, except this is a much more marvelous dance. It's because in film, I can make the world dance.
Actually, this picture was not planned for the film. I just made it on the spur of the moment. I like the reflections of the trees in the glass in front of her. Later on, we used to call it a Botticelli picture because it reminded us of Italian Renaissance. This one was taken in New York already with our cat, our glamour girl that came with us from Hollywood. This was our apartment in Greenwich Village in Morton Street. It was a kind of a studio apartment. We used it a lot as a location for shooting. It had a very nice light, very large windows to the south. And our cats were with us, of course. Maya loved cats. Maya liked mirrors very much and used the idea of a mirror often in her writing. Also, the film ends with a broken mirror.
Maya was born Eleonora Derenkovsky, beautiful name, in 1917, the year of the Russian Revolution, in Russia, in Kiev, the great, great capital of the Ukraine. She came out of a very privileged situation. Most Jews did not live in the cities, but there were a good number of them. What was special about the Derens, the Derenkovskys, is that both parents were so very highly educated, particularly her father, who was a psychiatrist. And they then emigrated several years later, as many Jews did, to New York. I do know how very deeply, profoundly Maya loved her father and was influenced by him.
I am not greedy. I do not seek to possess the major portion of your days. I am content if, on those rare occasions whose truth can be stated only by poetry, you will, perhaps, recall an image, even only the aura of my films.
She came from the sea. If you've ever seen her film, At Land, she comes out of the sea. In her mind, she was a sea creature. Maya's bedroom was an underwater world. It was like like a grotto under the sea. And it was full of very beautiful objects, shells, coral. And on the ceiling there was a very unusual large painting of underwater creatures. And in the normal light, you would see that, but when the lights were turned off, it turned out it was painted with phosphorescent paint, and so suddenly it came to life with different colors, and you really felt as if you were under the sea at night, surrounded by the other creatures of the sea. It was an apartment of love and of beauty. It was predominantly blue. That was her favorite color.
What I do in my films is very, I think very distinctively, I think they are the films of a woman, and I think that their characteristic time quality is the time quality of a woman. I think that the strength of men is their great sense of immediacy. They are a now creature, and a woman has strength to wait because she's had to wait. She has to wait 9 months for the concept of a child. Time is built into her body in the sense of becomingness, and she sees everything in terms of it being in the stage of becoming. She raises a child knowing not what it is at any moment, but seeing always the person that it will become. Her whole life, from her very beginning, it's built into her, is the sense of becoming. Now, in any time form, this is a very important sense. I think that my films, putting as much stress as they do upon the constant metamorphosis, one image is always becoming another. That is, it is what is happening that is important in my films, not what is at any moment. This is a woman's time sense, and I think it happens more in my films than in almost anyone else's.
Hella Heyman was a young still photographer living in Los Angeles. She was very close friends with a woman named Galka Shire. And Galka was an art dealer. She worked with the paintings of 4 important and rather unknown painters at that time in America. And that was Klee, Feininger, Kandinsky, and Jawlensky. She was also, Galka, a friend of Maya and Sasha. And that's how the friendship between the 3 started. Galka was the focal point, in a certain sense. Hella came to New York at a certain period and stayed with Maya and Sasha in Morton Street, and at that point, At Land was germinating. And as always in Maya's films, one person did not have one function. One person did as much as was needed. Hella was camera woman, coached by Sasha, incidentally, grip, actress, whatever. In the scene in At Land at the beach, where there is a chess game going on, the human counterparts for those, the black and the white figure, Hella is the black-haired woman in that chess game. They remained friends for quite a long while, in fact, until the divorce between Sasha and Maya, and eventually the marriage of Sasha and Hella.
I intended it almost as a mythological statement, in the sense that folk tales are mythological, archetypal statements. The girl in the film is not a personal person, she's a personage.
Maya had several projects that were, for some reasons, abandoned. And the one that most interested me was to be a film about children's games. For her, it was the ritual involved in these games, and they are very ritualistic and full of the kind of gesture that has specific meaning. And to learn from Maya that this was universal was a revelation. I was a New York street kid. I knew nothing about what was happening elsewhere in the world. But I played with great affection, hopscotch, jump rope, jacks. Jacks is a game, it certainly has different names elsewhere in the world, but it was played, for example, by my mother in Russia as a young girl.
She was unusually dressed for those days. I think she was just a woman ahead of her time, because many years later I would often see somebody dressed just exactly like her, even think maybe it was she, until she turned around and then realized that this was her style. The clothes were this European style of embroidered blouse that could be worn off the shoulder. And it was like a folk clothes always with a long dirndl skirt. It may be that she had the body type of sort of like heavy hips and heavy legs, and certainly that kind of skirt looked much better on her. And her hair, of course, she did have very curly hair, which instead of cutting it off, as most of us would have done, she just let it be. So a la the 60s with the flower children and stuff. In other words, she really looked like a flower child, but this was not the 60s, this was the 40s.
Since Maya had her own experience with dancing, she wanted to use film to express dance ideas in a new way by using the film technique of editing to free the dancer from gravity, so that the dancer would seem to be floating by his own power. In New York, she found a young dancer, Tally Beatty, who was willing to cooperate for free. In it, we used slow motion. Again, we hired a cheap 60mm slow motion camera. We used that.
It isn't a problem of choreographing a dancer. It's a problem of choreographing whatever it is that you have in that frame, including the space, the trees, the animate or even inanimate objects. And at that moment, this is where the film choreographer departs a little bit from the dance choreographer. And that is what I attempted to do in a study for choreography, for camera. I've retitled it actually pas de deux, because what happens there is that although you see only one dancer, the camera is as partner to that dancer and carries him or accelerates him as a partner would do to the ballerina, making possible progressions and movements that are impossible to the individual figure.
Everything that Maya did in any of her other films is there. The condensation, the intensity, and perfection as a film like poem, something that goes. Maya said the prose is narrative, is horizontal, and poetry, song is vertical. It reaches detail after detail after detail. After 2.5 minutes, it reaches the point that is that intensity from which it cannot go any further. Everything is set, exhausted, the point made, perfect.
As a kid, first I got a slide projector, then I got a 9.5mm projector. Then I attended the screenings of the Cine Club at the Urania in Vienna. And so it was pretty clear that, I was involved with film. And then what happened was when I had to leave Austria, because Hitler didn't like me. I came to the United States, and again, really, even though I had to work, I kept on thinking about what I could do about film and whether it wouldn't be a nice idea perhaps to start a Cine Club. But then there was this really like a revelation, namely, there was an announcement in the papers that a woman who I never had heard of, Maya Deren, would present her films at the Provincetown Playhouse. They had never shown films before there. The whole idea of taking over regular theater was very enticing to me, and I decided that yes, I should do the same. I felt that I was in the presence really of a new kind of talent, somebody who had absorbed the 20th century revelations and achievements in terms of dream theory. Dreams are essentially silent. This was a very important element in the films to me, the silence. And here was somebody who was able to represent this dream reality, this inner reality, on film. Wonderful.
I felt so close with Sasha more than with anybody else, though Hella and I used to sit to the side and talk about Sasha and say that we were going to marry him. So then we finally came to the conclusion that Helen would marry him first, and then I would marry him in the next life. So that was it. But my recollection of Sasha is indescribable. He was such a sweet and gentle soul. She was so busy and so involved in the very essence of living that many things passed her by, dangerous and otherwise. And I think that Sasha had a more precise way of looking at things. So I think he was a great balance for her and a great source of of spiritual, of the true spiritual quality that one needs, particularly in a person of Maya's temperament. I came from Trinidad at 5 years of age, and later on I found out that Maya had come from her country at 5 years of age, and on a boat also. So that was a commonality that might not have been expressed, but was felt by some psychic mean between the two of us. And maybe she saw, in this mirror, this of oneself, that she saw this particular person when she came here to this country. Because coming here at that young age, unless you've experienced it, you don't know what it is. Everything is new to you. And everything is so frightening to you. People, the places, the way people talk, the way they act. And then you had to speak English to become an American. And that was the goal, that you become American, I don't remember any written material that she gave to prepare. She talked as usual, and she used words to bring forth a certain choreography. But then she had a very experienced dancer in Frank, and then she allowed us to move freely. And many people feel that death is a release and you go into something else. I had no feelings about that. There was never any question in my mind. All I can think about was the absolute abyss of death. After death, to me, there is just nothing. I think it was the scenes where she had sort of a running in it. That's what I felt like doing. I felt if I could just outrun death, if I could just get away from it, the whole thought of it. And I always remember that if you wash your face, you can wash away the memories. But that is pure myth, because I've washed my face till all end of time, and death was always staring me. So that was the easiest part of any ritual or any dance scene that Maya might have wanted for me to totally express. And that was a ritual in time and in death to me. Do ava ti la vini bomosi bolu. Do ava ti la vini bomosi bolu. Do ava ti la vini bomosi bolu. Pa vini bo, merci beaucoup.
In 1946, when Maya applied for a Guggenheim grant, this was the first time anybody in film had applied for it. Joseph Campbell, Margaret Mead, Gregory Bateson, all the people she knew who were important in their worlds, wrote letters for her in support of her. And there was a marvelous, marvelous party in celebration of the Guggenheim. And she then used the money to go to Haiti. Mead and Bateson had shot very, very special footage in Bali having to do with trance. And this interested Maya enormously. And of course, Haiti is quite famous for this, and that is why she went to Haiti. Maya used the device that was being used at the time that she was filming, a wire recorder, a portable piece of equipment, quite heavy, very delicate. But she could afford it. So when it came time to go to prepare equipment to go to Haiti, she was very, very happy to take this along. She recorded a great deal of Haitian music. She also used it at home and at her parties, by the way. This was often what she would play, the Haitian music, on her wire recorder.
Well, I'll tell you, my first reaction was annoyance, because she had the advantage of all of my correspondence. Also, she didn't relate to me as she should have. But I got over that because I saw that she was a serious person and was received by Haitians. In 1936, when I went to the West Indies, it was partly as an anthropologist and partly as a dancer. And for a while, I had a very rough time holding those two things together. My interest in Haiti was not only dance, but it was the vaudeville. But then I knew what I had to do. I wanted to see what the foot movements were and the hip movements and the various things that would make up what they brought, or what their ancestors had brought from Africa to the Caribbean. And this comes across quite well. And then, of course, as I got into it, I had to see what God behaved in what way and what God danced in a certain way when the devotee became possessed.
Voodoo is an African word meaning spirit. It is a general name for all deities. It came down to Haiti with slavery. It's more than a religion. That is to say, it is a set of beliefs and practices which deal with the spiritual forces of the universe and attempt to keep the individual in harmonious relation with them as they affect his life. Haiti is very well known for the voodoo island, but all the Caribbean islands all practice it. It's much purer there than in Africa, probably. But it was very useful for the independence of Haiti when the slaves were plotting against their masters. There was a big ceremony that was done, especially to gather all of them together to make a decision that they were going to start fighting and until they won their freedom. So it had a very strong part to play in the revolution of the slaves until they became independent in 1804. The book that she had written, Divine Horseman, is really one of the best that I have seen. For some reason, I myself, being Haitian, when I read the book, I wonder, because how did she accumulate those knowledges? I mean, how did the people who she was connected with, how could they open up so easily to a foreigner, somebody that they didn't know and somebody who's supposed to be who comes, as you were saying before, a white person coming to learn about the culture of the black people. So it was very strange. You read this book to see how much they reveal to her.
I agree that there are the forces in the universe of which Vodun speaks, but there are other religions which speak of those forces also. I do find that the manner in which it operates in practice, ritually, the interior miracle, if you will, is very valid. You see, the Haitians never ask whether you believe in Vodun. They say, do you do it? Do you serve?
Maya, do you feel that people in the audience looking in tonight are pretty skeptical, looking askance at this talk about voodoo now?
Well, I don't think they would be if they just related a little bit to things that they have from time to time felt. For example, those moments when they forgot themselves and when everything was clear by a certain logic that was larger than themselves, those moments, imagine those multiplied 1,000 times, so that oneself is really transcended and everything is clear in another way. I think one would begin to know what I mean. I think artistic inspiration is in that direction. I think love is in that direction. The logics of love are different than the logics of non-love. like being overcome by a transcendent and larger force. And you don't take to it easily.
The most personal film I feel Maya ever made, and people think it's a very strange attitude to have, is her meditation on violence. She doesn't appear in the film, but she is the camera. She is moving. She is breathing in relationship to this dancer. She is composing so that the one shadow or the three shadows or at times the no shadow of this dancer against the background are an integral part of the dance. Every kind of quality of texture is a really felt part of the frame. And so I feel this is very personal.
Beginning and no end. And indeed, I found out from the Chinese boy who performs the movements here that this school of boxing Wu-Tang is based on the Book of Change, and that its theory is that life is an ongoing process constantly, and that it's based on a negative positive with constantly a resolution into another negative and positive, and so on. And so my first problem became to construct a form as a whole which would suggest infinity. Now the Wu-Tang, based on the negative-positive principle, translates that in physical terms into the breathing. And that's why it's called an interior boxing, because the movements are governed by an interior condition. And so I determined to treat the movements as a meditation, that one circles around an idea in time terms.
This was the Greenwich Village of the 40s, and it was the center of many artistic activity. When I was just a young man, fresh out of college, I was entering the dance field as an untrained dancer. However, my background was in what is now known as martial arts. I had studied that at home. And so I was moving around the party circuits among the dancers and the writers. And my favorite dancer, a lady by name of Teiko, introduced me to Maya. And Maya was already working with body movement. We met, and Maya is a very intelligent or intellectual person, but she is also a woman full of passion. She was a woman with a lot of internal tension. And we started with many arguments because she had just come back from Haiti and she was all involved with Haitian voodoo. and the trance and the shaman culture. And I was saying that in the Chinese context, it was quite the opposite. It was the wise man is the one who controls nature rather than allowing nature to possess. We were all very poor, so of course we have no special space. We worked in Maya's small apartment, and we pushed all the furniture to the kitchen, and we tried to hang photographers' paper backgrounds along the wall and to give it a clear space. See, when we want to break out into aggressiveness and into an outburst of power, so a contained space is no longer appropriate. So with one jump, we are high up and we have the open sky, and then the power can break out and directly confront the camera. She conceived this entire project as an emergence from softness into harshness. I would simply do exactly the sequence that I had learned, and Maya would film it, cut it, she re-edited it, doubled it, reversed it, so that it became a continuous interplay between her and the raw movement.
What I wanted to do here was have the climax point of paralysis. And so that is what happens here. The movement gets more and more and more violent, and the extreme of violence tips over and goes into its opposite and becomes a point of paralysis with silence right here, from which the film returns and is photographed in reverse all the way back. Now, the extraordinary thing about this type of movement is that it's as much in balance when you see it backwards as when you see it forwards. It took the Chinese to invent this in the 5th century.
The term Taiji literally means the ultimate form. And what can be an ultimate form? It's not the most perfect or most beautiful. And that would be a Western concept. In China, the ultimate form is that which has no form. This is not supposed to be a paradox, because what has no form is when a shape is in motion, is in constant change. So that which is in constant motion contains all possible forms.
Art actually is based on the notion that if you would really celebrate an idea or a principle, you must think, you must plan, you must put yourself completely in the state of devotion and not simply give the first thing that comes to your head.
I did not want to insult her or provoke her by taking, my borax to Maya's parties and filming. She would have gone into one of her rages. What is this? Where is her script? This is not serious. Maya was for a very carefully prepared kind of filming. She was not for improvisation, collecting just random footage. Even if she disapproved of what was happening already in cinema, still she was, by her activities as a pioneer that invaded and attacked universities and art institutions, that you have to show avant-garde film. She was a pioneer and she broke the first ice.
Every single thing she said was prearranged in her notes, in her mind. She used to write things on little 3x5 index cards and carry them with her everywhere. I mean, she would kill me if she heard me say this, but it always made me think of students of the Talmud, where you take one sentence out of the Bible and you can write 50 books based on that one sentence. It's exactly what Maya did. Every word, every possible meaning. In other words, she didn't expand what she knew, but she went down into it.
What is important in a motion picture camera, of course, is its motor. Just remember that motion picture is a time form. Just as the telescope reveals the structure of matter in a way that the unaided eye can never see it, so slow motion reveals the structure of motion, events that occur rapidly so that they seem a continuous flux, are revealed in slow motion to be full of pulsations and agonies and indecisions and repetitions.
For all her extreme individualism and many stories about her temperament and her need to have things her way, nevertheless, Maya was an artist of great collaborative instincts. She worked in the films that she made. You will read a whole list of musicians, dancers, choreographers, painters who were part of her collaboration and who inspired her and whom she inspired. And the living theater was part of that, these interweaving circles of that time. And it was a place of encounter, a place where different spirits could set each other on fire. And Maya was always on fire. She was a burning person. She had some intensity that never stopped sizzling. She loved at any social gathering to dance, to exhibit the exuberance of her body. When she danced at a party, everybody felt it as a special kind of religious and sexual act at once, because voodoo allows for that kind of tremendous physical commitment. She's very close to what Artaud is asking of us, that we commit our bodies to the experience in the theater.
Maya te servi ici, dans Kaisa là, mais testament tombé. Bon, il est obligé d'initier pour toute loi ça, et puis il te prend garde pour eux. Il te couché quand eux pour eux. Il avait tête, il quand eux pour eux. Tu comprends? Et puis, mademoiselle te vit job. Quand elle passait, il jouait un travail, il jouait un job, il jouait fait photo, et puis l'elle fait film toujours bon. Mais Maya mouri, mais l'esprit n'a pas mouru.
Non. Pour jusqu'au dernier jour, je m'a toujours eu Maya Deren. Parce que c'est lui qui m'a encouragé à faire la peinture. Au nom de Maya Deren.
Oh, je femme déjà, la caille avec la toile. Je l'ai vendu, dans la caille avec la toile. Je l'ai vendu, la caille moi. Je l'ai vendu, la caille. Eu poder andar no voo, mas eu poder andar no voo, mas ele panteja la cara, avec la toile.
Et voilà les mêmes Maya Deren, esprit Julie tout, parce que l'esprit Julie était toujours manifesté sur Maya. C'est Julie Freda, il était plus honoré.
Their goddess of love is a very fascinating and complex idea. She is, in fact, goddess of all the luxuries which are not essential to survival. She is the goddess of love, which, unlike sex, is not essential to propagation. She is the muse of the arts. Now, man can live without it, but he doesn't live very much as man without it. It is strange that one would have to go to an apparently primitive culture, such as Haiti, to find an understanding in such exalted terms of what the essential feminine, not female, feminine role might conceivably be, that of being everything which is human, everything which is more than that which is necessary. Taken from this point of view, there is no reason in the world why women shouldn't be artists, and very fine ones. I am a little distressed that so few women have entered the area of film.
Le vaudon signifie mystère de Dieu, la vie du monde. Car tout est mystère. Maya n'a pas de compréhension pour le témambo. Et Maya est devenue une dame forte, très forte, dans le mystique. Madélie Toussaint a fait une cérémonie à Goué pour le bac à Goué de la mer. Maya a toujours envie d'aller assister à une cérémonie. Mais pendant que Madame Élie Toussaint a fait une cérémonie à Goué, étant sur la mer, là, en bateau, Maya a disparu. Pas ouais Maya. Là, il pas ouais Maya. C'est là à chercher, faire prière, la prière sur la nation et pour qu'on Maya. C'est là qu'il va chanter. En pile garder le Maya très éloigné. Très loin de la mer, là, loin. Et puis, Maya ouvert bras. La chose de la mer. Et puis Maya même, Madame Élie Toussaint a chanté. Tina la. Tina la do sans la boko. Tina la. Tina la do sans oui boko. À Gotao, yo, regardez Timon, yo. Gane Julie, regardez les enfants là, yo. China là, de quoi ça, oui, beaucoup. Et puis, Maya même a venu avec maîtresse soleil, la paix danser, la paix chose, et puis il vient paraître devant le bateau, et puis tout le monde promène, et puis l'entrée dans le bateau.
Possession is the becoming of an identity. It is not the freeing of one's identity. That it is not people carrying on in a kind of wild state, but it is the presence of the gods, and that it is, as it were, the materialization of divine essences, divine energies, and divine ideas.
We'd have these little sort of like side conversations saying, "Ooh, how that Maya, how is she able to get such a young guy as her lover?" It was very shocking that there were 18 years between them.
If there was a party or a meeting or anything, if a room with people, and if Maya was in it, she was the center of attention. She was quite short, and you wouldn't quite realize this if she was speaking from a podium or dancing, because she seemed larger than she was.
They got statistics on about every question, including topics only Kinsey would mention. I can dial to find out whether I can call to find out time, but who's going to tell me if you're mine? Oh, baby, you're a mystery to me. They've charted the heart of the atom.
After Teji came to live with Maya, she took him to Haiti, and he heard the drumming and the various rhythms and learned them. Then when they came back to New York, they had the idea that they would get some of his friends who were drummers and set up a program. And they took it around to various community centers and would do a demonstration of Haitian drumming. One evening when they were practicing, but rehearsing for that, I got a few rolls of film and some tape and did a few shots. And there was endless coffee being served. Maya always was drinking Medaglia d'Oro coffee.
You're a mystery to me. They can't predict how many babies will be born and when. They can't foretell the path of the hurricane. I've consulted psychiatrists, gypsies, the stars, but no one can tell me what, when, or where about you. You're a mystery to me, inscrutable you. You're a mystery to me.
So I had the great honor to live with them as their friend, with her and Teji. You know, they took me in like a bird with a broken wing, which was not far from what I was, and sheltered me for several months. So if this film comes out okay, as I hope it will, I will call it Water for Maya. This is a music for the eyes, for Maya, but it's ritual also. I will have to take it through to where it is that deep sense of water that's transformative, that's mysterious, that's even down to the river Styx. Larry Jordan and I were invited to go to Jeffrey Holder's wedding when he was in the Flower Drum song by John Latouche, big Broadway hit of the time. And they had a big wedding out on Long Island, and the PR people wanted to make a lot of advertisement out of it. And Holder had invited her as a priestess to come and make it a Haitian wedding. By the time we arrived, they had shuttled her aside and given her a small room and were not allowing her to put up the voodoo ritual things, and she went into a rage. This is what would be called a holy rage, and it did have the effect of something that a lot of people don't believe I saw, but I saw it with my own eyes. She went into the kitchen and she took a refrigerator and she hurled it from one corner of that kitchen to the other. Now, you know, I've tried to say, well, how could she, such a small woman, Maya of all people, lift up a refrigerator? Well, these are people that forget mothers have lifted up automobiles to get them off of their children. Maya was in a trance of Papa Loco, the god of ritual, which was being blasphemed against at this wedding. And she had the strength of 10. I mean, maybe she pivoted it on one side. I don't know how, but what I saw is while she's making such growl noises that were shaking everybody's teeth, she slammed this refrigerator up against the other wall and broke a lot of dishes. Everyone went running, screaming from this kitchen. Then she was led upstairs as she went on with these growl noises, and I was then invited up to this room, and I was quite terrified to receive a blessing for the pictures that I was taking. Burning rum was put all over me, and I didn't know what was happening even. I thought it was my only suit, and I was trying to brush out these blue flames, you know. Meanwhile, a lot of language is going on here, and then I was told later you got a blessing from Papa Loco, and I do well believe it. And one reason I believe it, however, is because once I arrived 2 hours late to help Maya Deren fold and mail envelopes for an event that she cared about, and she put a curse on me. And I did get sick, and I had reason from another man that had gone to Haiti that I knew. Angelo de Benedetto told me the only reason you didn't die is because you have a very powerful blessing of Papa Loco. So that's the two sides of Maya. And I benefited from and suffered from both of them. And people that, want to either make her one thing or another thing or any diminutive thing are not comprehending, one, the beautiful complexity of this woman, and two, they are not understanding artists at all. She had to be all these many things to be the creative person that she was, to do things in cinema that had never been done before. In fact, you could say, leaving the word cinema out of it, to effect rituals in moving vision that had never been done before. And it took all these powers, and alas, at some point finally, when an artist has powers like this, he or she, if those powers get outside of the work process, it can kill you. And I fervently believe that that's what killed Maya Deren at, you say, 44 years old. I mean, she died young anyway, whatever age she was. And it was because somehow the powers of voodoo got outside the work process. Partly because she didn't get the money to finish her last film, The Very Eye of Night. And even when it was finished, nobody understood it, but me and a very few others. The Very Eye of Night has it all. It's intrinsically Greek. It goes straight up through Shakespeare. It is the ritual of her culture. And everyone said, oh, Maya didn't do it. It's over the hill. And they think her early psychodramas are more important. Well, this is enough to drive someone crazy and kill them. They say, oh, you can see that the stars are just sequins on a scrim of some kind that are being shakily moved along. I've heard people say things like, it's like a child's little theater thing. That is exactly the point. I mean, that Maya would not make a fakery like Hollywood. She wants it to be like a child's vision. The somnambulist. This is a major theme in the history of cinema. And Maya would have been vibrantly aware of that. It is in very early Méliès films. And again, the dreamer, the walking dreamer, is almost what stars are, because the audience is almost dreaming these dreams together.
1978 was Maya's last completed film and a very traumatic experience for her. She scraped together some money, rented a studio, had a dolly, luxuries. She collaborated on that film with one of the world's great choreographers, Anthony Tudor, who was fascinated by her dance films. And he brought in a young troupe of ballet dancers for the film. And it was a great deal of fun on the set because people sort of wandered in and out. There was a young fellow named Harrison Starr, the son of a California friend, who shot a great deal. In other words, there were times when there were 2 cameras on this. Lots of people were crawling all over the place, wiring, whatever was necessary. I remember John Cage and a bunch of painters coming onto the set.
And for some reason, the image came into my mind of a film that I'd seen at the Museum of Natural History, which dealt with the movement of celestial bodies. And it was a scientific film, it was an astrological film, it had no pretensions. But here was the moon, and here was the stars, and here was Jupiter, and so on. And all of these things in this great black space were revolving. It was really the most beautiful abstract ballet that I've ever seen in all my life. And it was beautiful because the bodies were really related by gravity. They were not falsely related by artistic decisions. The moon came closer or farther for real reasons, not for made-up reasons. And therefore the balance of the frame, you see what I mean, was perfect. The balance of the relationship of all these bodies was at all times perfect.
Ici, c'est l'ombrage de Dieu. Le mot l'homme signifie l'ombrage de Dieu. Qui veut dire nègre et l'homme. L'ombrage de Dieu qui veut dire la lumière. Le mot l'homme signifie la lumière. Le mot nègre signifie ténèbres. La lumière et le ténèbre. Mais toi, sortir dans le ténèbre, apparu dans la lumière. Tu vois? Quelle que ce soit la couleur, on sortit du ténèbre. Tu vois? Apparu dans la lumière. Voilà.
I often saw Maya very vulnerable. She would sit down and cry, which most people don't have a sense of her doing. She'd gird herself for a party. One of her ways is she would hitch up her dress, give herself a shot of Dr. Jacobs' feel-good hypo, in her rear end, to give her, and she thought she was taking vitamins, but I guess there were vitamins in there, but it was mostly speed, as we now know it. And this is someone who's forcing herself into the human arena from a sense of extreme vulnerability.
She was not only making her own films, but she was very concerned about the other filmmakers and how to get them better known, and finally came up with the idea of Creative Film Foundation to provide them with recognition, publicity, public acceptance, and money. So she started to create a board of directors, a very well-known people, And the idea was, to provide a showcase really for films that were not Hollywood films, but film as art.
I would like to recall to everyone that the motion picture camera and the whole motion picture medium was developed at about the same period and in the same climate as saw the development of the telegraph and the airplane and all of these other industrial expressions of something that was happening in the mind of man which wanted to break some kind of confines. It reflects in film. This is its fascination for me. It would be so much easier to be a painter or a writer. You don't have to learn equipment. You don't have to do all the things. You're not at the mercy of the laboratories. You're not here and you're not there. It's a terrible pain to be a filmmaker because you not only have the creative problems, but you have financial problems that they don't have. You have technical problems that they don't have. You have machines that are breaking down in a way that paintbrushes don't break down. It's just a terrible thing to be a filmmaker. And if you're a filmmaker, it's because there's something in the sheer medium that seems to be able to make some sort of statement which you particularly want to make and which no other medium to you seems capable of making in the same way.
The actual award that was presented to the filmmaker was a very nice document, but of course it was supposed to be accompanied also by money. And this was one of the unhappinesses, I would say, in Maya's life. Namely, she was unable to get money for this award.
I'd like to introduce Maya Deren to invoke the particular gods.
I don't have a trained voice, but that makes it very authentic.
The Day of the Dead, and that's the day of Gede. So Gede is a humorous guy. When somebody is possessed by Gede, Gede is poking fun at death. To Gede, people should not cry when you die. They should celebrate instead because he believes in reincarnation. Anybody who would be possessed or connected with Gede would be acting very strangely, very, out of the ordinary. So this was Maya, and when she attached herself to her cat, and she called the cat Gede. That made it more bizarre, to have a cat called, because nobody would dare do that in Haiti, call a cat Gede. It would be an insult to the spirits.
It was after one of the Creative Film Foundation award evenings that we got together. Maya stayed after most people left, and we kind of sat around and played some music, and she got up and danced and sang a little Russian and got a little teary and felt, I guess she was feeling nostalgic about her life and her past and where she came from, and talked about she thinks she'd like to go back home to Russia, where she spent her childhood, I think, till she was 5. Maybe she felt like going home because she was getting older and life was getting harder. And as I think about it subsequently, I also think that Maya would not have enjoyed the aging process too well.
One evening, it was in October 61, I think, I had a call from Teji, and I hadn't seen him or Maya for a few weeks. And I was horrified because Teji said Maya was sick, in hospital, and wasn't expected to live the night. And I had no idea what was happening. He asked me to come to the hospital. And Teji was there with Maya's mother. And that was all. And I think the reason was he had never really believed that she was that sick. And he had never told anybody that she was in this condition. And when I arrived, sure enough, he repeated that the doctor had said she wouldn't live the night. He hoped, in a forlorn way, that because it was going to be Friday the 13th of October at midnight, he hoped that that would change their luck and that she would come out after all. And in the course of the night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, she did die. And I never talked to her. She was in a coma. I think she probably was run down from lack of food. She and Teji had been poor for a very long time. His being in the army had been a real blow for them financially. And I know that there were days when they could not eat, and sometimes if there was a little money, it went to feed the cats. And so I think that she was run down, and I think that she was getting Max Jacobson's cocktails, as she called them, the shots to keep her going. It could be there was a side effect from that combination. Teji felt that she had died of anger at the court problems over his inheritance, and there's some possibility there. Maya was a person of limitless emotional power. And she was always full of joy or anger or distress, or things were very far out emotionally for her all the time. And I think if she was angry at the events of the court that day, she was probably very angry, and the cerebral hemorrhage may have been a result. I don't credit the voodoo theory.
And I got it confused. I thought that she had wanted it for her funeral, Haydn's trumpet rondo. And then, after it was all over, I remember that she wanted it for her wedding. I took her ashes. She's buried in the site of Fuji Mountain, in the most busiest section of Tokyo Harbor and the ocean.